The Straight Red Card is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. Visit Roughneck Scarves for your supporters' gear from Seattle, Portland, New York, to the Philadelphia Union, and anything MLS to the English Premier League. Visit Roughneck Scarves at roughneckscarves.com.
But speaking of detractors, John Godfrey of the New York Times said in an article today that this is Clint Dempsey's team. Boca Negra, he said, is just a liability at this point in his age, that he's too slow. I'm just paraphrasing. Landon Donovan, he said, is kind of suckling from the inferior Tita of MLS, as he put it. And for those reasons, Dempsey is really the heart and soul of this team. But I wonder, when you think about it, because Clint can be kind of a reluctant star in some ways. He's a bit of a shy guy, and he doesn't always come off as a leader type. I mean, what do you think about John Godfrey's perspective there? And is this Clint Dempsey's team?
Well, I haven't read the article, but just going from what you said,
yeah.
I think the focus is because Clint has done so incredibly well in England. He's going to shoulder a lot of the pressure of results and success for the U.S. national team. I mean, you think about all the American players that have been overseas and done well, and a majority of those players are going to be goalkeepers. And for Clint, he's a tweener. I mean, I know Clint very, very well. I like Clint a lot, but he's a tweener. He can play literally every position in front of the back four. Mm-hmm. And he's never really locked down anything and said, I'm a striker, I'm a drop-in striker, I like to play underneath and just kind of float. I'm left mid, I'm right mid, I'm central. I mean, literally the kid can play anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think the focus for us is, okay, here's finally our true goal scorer, and should he be playing as a left midfielder? Should he be playing as a drop underneath forward? What are we doing to help him? The difficulty in using those examples is that the Premiership is a much, much different game than playing a qualifier, playing in America, playing for the U.S. national team. I mean, you look at, for example, Manchester United, that's a team that's built to win the Premiership. But when they play against a team like Barcelona, Manchester United is incredibly exposed at some of the most simple points of view.
Right.
Barcelona is built to be the best team in the world. And so, now to pull that back around, Landon Donovan is incredibly underrated for what he does. Yep. He is by far, in my opinion, the best player of his generation, hands down. Mm-hmm. He has more physical attributes despite his size, more skill and skill set than people give him credit for. And he's always going to take the hit because he elected to stay in Major League Soccer.
Yep.
That's just, it's pure and simple, just the truth.
Yep.
I can see where people would think that Clint is the guy. He definitely is, in my opinion, one of the best two players on the field at any time. I think he and Landon are a great combination together. But from a leadership perspective, I think, Carlos has held his own. Now the question is, does Bob continue to go down that path? Because it's a long, long ways away until the next World Cup. So, we'll see. It's an interesting talking point, that's for sure.
Right.
I think the Bob's 4-2-2-2 really makes Donovan and Dempsey the key parts of the team. It's really built around them. It gives them the room for Donovan to use his speed to beat the man 1v1, or it gives Dempsey the ability to cut into the middle and play with the ball a bit. I think we opted to change the formation. I think it might change a bit, not necessarily that drastically. I think it'd still be the key players, but both Dempsey and Donovan have been prone to fade in and out of games from time to time. They are still the key players, and we do still rely mainly on our attack based around them, despite the fact that they are midfielders or in the 4-2-2 too. They are playing more of an attacking central mid almost to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, what I would love to see is a certain, and then this is in the big scheme of things. This is looking down the road. Is I would love to see young American players that were comfortable enough under pressure from multiple defenders to be able to hold the ball up the way a guy like Clint and Landon can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We just don't have a lot of players, and you can see just I wouldn't say drop off, but just the difference between guys like Xavi and Iniesta, and obviously I'm talking about the best in the world,
Right.
but their incredible ability to skip away from defenders and make that positive pass. And you can't replicate that kind of pressure. You can't replicate that type of ability. And from a defensive standpoint, from a 1v1 defending standpoint, we're pretty damn good as a country.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now the question is, offensively, how can we change that, and how can we kind of create that atmosphere to give us the best opportunity to apply, that philosophy, to the international game. And I can tell you, from firsthand being around a lot of the training sessions that Bob has had, whether that be in Los Angeles, whether that be in Boston, wherever it is that I've been around the team, Bob does an incredible job of creating small side games that, kind of mimic those situations. The most difficult part is how can you take a small sided game in practice and get the results you're looking for and kind of apply them to some of the best players in the world. And that's, listen, that's where we spin our wheels, and that's where it's one of the biggest issues, that U.S. soccer faces as a development.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're about out of time, but we have just enough time to squeeze in one last question, and it's a viewer question, Brian. And the question goes as, if Bob Bradley fails to win the Gold Cup or the U.S. goes out early, that is in the group stage, is there any chance he could get fired, I guess is what this viewer is asking.
I would say yes. I mean, I think absolutely Bob knows that, going into a tournament like this, at some level he has to at least acknowledge the chance that his job would be on the line. Sunil's no idiot. Sunil knows exactly what the goals are for this team. And I think, you look back at the World Cup, regardless of how well people think we played or didn't play, the goal is to get out of your group, regardless. It could be as ugly as possible or it could be, as pretty as possible. I think the disappointment is for the first time in a World Cup, we actually had the easiest path we could have ever possibly had to make it to the World Cup semifinals.
Right.
Okay, so fast forward, Bob's out of contract, he re-ups, the focus is going to be on Jurgen Klinsmann, the focus is going to be on Gus Hiddink, whoever, Arsene Wenger, all these big names. Can they make the United States better? And I think that's, that is the quintessential question for a Sunil or for U.S. soccer, is that you look at these coaches coming in, these pedigrees. Let's use Major League Soccer, for example. Carlos de los Cobos, Aaron Vinter.
Yeah.
They're not having success. And why is it? If they're having success at a national team level, if they're having success at a club level, why are they not having success with American players? And right, wrong, or indifferent, one of the most basic situations for American players is the education component. For a country, our education component is incredibly high, and a lot of our young players are built to question why, what's the formation, overthink the situation. And if you start looking at foreign coaches, is there a coach that can at least identify with this American mentality, where this component becomes, a big scheme, a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob knows an American player better than 99.9% of the coaches out there. He's coached at a high school level, at a club level, as a college level, as an MLS level, and has success at all those levels, and even at the U.S. level. But if we don't win the Gold Cup, will his job be in jeopardy? And I think, anyone would say absolutely yes, it would be in jeopardy just from the clear standpoint of, have we set the bar as a country? Have we set the bar at U.S. soccer?
Yeah, I mean, and that begs the question, really. There is a particular German fellow who's been living in the United States for quite a long time that does understand, as far as we know it, American players very well, but it just hasn't worked out the last couple World Cups. I mean, so we get into that situation again. That conversation could come up once again, or is that conversation dead?
Well, with Jurgen, Jurgen's been around the LA Galaxy forever, and Jurgen's, his name's been tied to the U.S. job for a long time as well. There's no doubt what Jurgen did with Germany was incredible. But I'll throw this one out there. Jurgen and his company are the ones that, identified Aaron Vinter and the coaching staff and the situation up at the Toronto FC. And right now, they're not necessarily burning up the world.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I think it's easy to point a finger and say Jurgen should be the guy. But for me, my own humble personal opinion, I would love to see there be at least a long-term philosophy where, if the head coach is in charge, then at least the assistants, kind of like how Peter Novak had, would be in charge of the Olympic team, an assistant coach be in charge of the 20s, and down the ladder, at least so we have a philosophy starting from scratch. And, maybe that's Claudio Reyna starting from at the lowest levels, and Tab Ramos getting involved at that stage.
Right.
Who knows? And I'm just literally painting a broad stroke, but to identify who could be the next U.S. national team coach, I think that's a tall task, and it's definitely a task I'm glad that I'm not involved with.
Yeah, we have so much more to talk about, Brian, but we are plumb out of time, and we'd love to have you back because this was. I'll be honest with you. I had another 10 questions, but we're not going to get to them. So, but I want to thank you for coming on, and like I said, hopefully you'll come back and join us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know, guys, anytime.